Now we're going to jump into how to actually use the law of cosines. I have two examples for you. Example one is going to be where you have side, angle, side scenario, and you're being asked to just find one side. So for these examples, I'm not asking when you're solving, you need to find all angles and all sides. For this one, I'm just asking you to find what the missing side length x is, and we're going to be using the law of cosines. As a reminder, when we have side angle side, we can't use law of sines. We're going to be using law of cosines. Okay, so in the law that we developed, cosine C was the angle that was given to us. So I just want to make sure that I put C here because the angle's right here, so C is going to go here. And everything else. So I could go ahead and put A, B, and then C. As usual, just making sure that my C is where the given angle's at. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and label the opposing sides. So side opposite of A is little a. Side opposite of C, or side opposite of B, I believe we're going to do little b. And then the side opposite of C, we're going to call C. But what we're looking for basically is side C, or basically X in this problem, because we have A, it's 17 meters, and we have B, it's 22 meters. Let's go ahead and plug in what we have into the equation. I went ahead and color coded the equation as well so that you could see where I'm plugging everything in. So there's what I plugged in. So C became X because that's what I'm looking for. My A was 17. I have to square it according to the equation. B is 22. Again, I have to square it. Minus 2 times the A times B in the problem. Cosine and then the angle, which was 42 degrees. So let's go ahead and simplify this using a calculator. So what I did is 17 squared is 289. 22 squared, that's 284. Remember, when I say squared, that means the number is being multiplied by itself to get you this result. Then we have minus, and then I did 2 times 17 times 22, and I got 748. And then I brought down the cosine 42. Next thing I'm going to do, let's add these two up together. I got 773. I also already put 748 cosine 42 into my calculator. When you do this, and again, this is multiplication, you should get 555.87. So right here was calculator. And at this point, if you're like, how did you get 555.87 for this part, feel free to raise your hand right now and ask me so I could show you on the calculator. All right, let's go ahead and subtract these. Great. Last thing, I need to solve for x. That means we got to get rid of the squared, so we're going to square root. Usually when you square root both sides of the equation, you got to do plus and minus. But because we know that the length of a triangle side has to be positive, because lengths need to be positive, we just go ahead and put that one solution, which is positive. So using your calculator, you're going to go ahead and put the square root of 217.13, and you can round it to the hundredths place, and I got 14.74. Rounded is the length of x. By the way, it makes sense and it's reasonable that 14.74 is near 22 meters and also near 17, so it's not very off. It's a reasonable answer. Alright, so this was an example of how to use law of cosines to find the missing side. Now, we're going to talk about how to use the law of cosines to find the missing angle. The missing angle that this problem is asking for is right here. It wants you to find the angle, and we call this symbol right here, Greek symbol, it's called theta. Let's go ahead and label everything. So again, I want to make sure that the angle is going to be C, just always for law of cosines. Otherwise, I'm going to have to switch things around. So I'm going to make sure C is right here. That means this should be A, B, and then C. So let's do that. A, B, C. Great. Now let's go ahead and label our lowercase sides. Opposite of angle A is little a. Opposite of angle B is little b. Opposite of angle C is little c. So this is a scenario where we have three sides and absolutely no angle. So you cannot use law of sines, of course. Let's go ahead and set up with the law of cosines what we have. So here's my equation. We're going to plug in. So I have C, it was 4.9 squared, cool. I have A, it was 8.3 squared. I have my B, 9.1 squared minus, and I plugged in AB, and then I don't have C. C is the theta that I'm looking for. So I gotta actually solve for this right here because it's asking what is theta? What is that angle C? So let's go ahead and use our calculator and square all of this stuff. So I squared this, I got that, that, and then I went ahead and multiplied all these three together, and I got 151.06. Let's add these two up right here. All right, cool. So I can't do much right here because I don't know what cosine C is, but I do want to make sure that C is by itself so that I could find out what it is. So I should kind of solve for C basically is what I'm trying to say. So let's get rid of this. So because this is like a positive number, we're going to go ahead and subtract 151.7 from both sides of the equation. So then we have 24.01 minus 151.7. You could use a calculator for this, but I got negative 127.69 right here. And then this stuff right here came down. See, notice this negative, it belongs to 151.06, so this has to come down too. Now, I want to solve for C, and cosine C in particular. I have negative 151.06 times the cosine C. So in this scenario, once you hit here, in order to get rid of this number, we're going to have to divide both sides because the opposite of multiplication is division. So I go ahead and divide both sides by negative 151.06. That cancels. This will cancel out right here. I had a little bar that should come up, but it's gone. But this should cancel out. And then what you're left over with is, and let me go ahead and kind of adjust this 1 second because I kind of jumped into what I'm going to do next. But what you should have at this point is this. Jumped ahead. I don't want to talk about the inverse just yet. Hold on 1 second. Let's bring this up. Good. Let's just fix the color coding. And then maybe I'll move this up. So let me just play this. Let's just go back to where we were. Sorry. So we were down here, subtracted, and we divided. This cancels out. And then we're left over with just cosine of C is equal to this whole quantity. The cool thing about this is negative divided by negative just becomes a positive. So you don't kind of have to double put this in the calculator. But what I'm going to do next, okay, how do we solve for C is the problem still. I have cosine in the way. So the reason why I didn't want to kind of jump to the next step right now that you saw in the video is because we haven't talked about it. So in your calculators, you should have cosine inverse. It looks like cosine to like a little negative 1 power. When you cosine inverse both sides, it gets rid of cosine and you're left over with just C. Let me show you. So this is what I mean by cosine inversing both sides. Cosine inverse will kind of cancel out cos so that you're left over with just C on this side. And basically this is what you got to input into the calculator. Cosine inverse, then all of this. And then you should get about 32.3 degrees. So again, this is basically calculator work. So I could show you because I'm at home. I don't have access to our class calculators. I just used the scientific calculator from calculator.net. And I clicked cosine inverse, this button right here. It shows up as arc cos on this calculator, but I went ahead and input 127.69 divided by 151.06. So again, I made it positive because negative divided by negative is a positive. And as you could see, it got 32.3 if I round up. Let me know if anyone has any questions on this calculator portion. But that is how we use law of cosines to find a missing angle. So yeah. All right, so there are the examples, and then expectation is to move on to the problems I have for you so you could get some of your own practice on this.